So, the new Taylor Swift album came out this week. Don't know if you've seen, and as a tentative, keen, often wriggling with complicated feelings about parasocialness and billionaires and etc., kind of Swiftie fan of her music, I would love to share with you my initial thoughts on the whole phenomenon in a way that even if you aren't interested in Taylor Swift, or in fact you're sick of hearing about Taylor Swift, might interest you. So I have made videos on this channel before about Taylor Swift. I talked about my experience of the Eras tour. I made a video generally about how I don't think we're getting our money's worth for live music, and how maybe the way forward is to support smaller artists as much as we support bigger artists. And I also did a whole video essay just about lies told about Taylor Swift. So I feel like I've covered some of the old ground when it comes to conversations about Taylor. This album, however, promised to be about her fame. So obviously on release day, I returned to one of my favourite essay collections, Monsters, A Fan's Dilemma. Do turn to page 54 in your hymn books if you'd like to follow along. Claire Dederer says, the problem with broadcasting, or with art, is that the flow only occurs in one direction, from the speaker to the receiver, from the artist to the audience. Telepathy, perfect union is what we seek. Art, unlike broadcasting or the internet, becomes a meaningful stand-in for that union. The artist undergoes the rigour of making, and in that creates the conditions for the audience to consume. The audience member sets aside her own ego, her own self, and participates in the dream built by the artist. There is a right relationship there. The relationship takes place on the page or the canvas. Parasocial relationships don't operate that way, though. They create a state of confusion in the consumer, a belief in a relationship that exists outside of the art. Now, Taylor Swift's album is called Life of a Showgirl, and in the run-up to her releasing it, I was thinking a lot about staging and caricature and performance, and I was hoping that we would get some tracks kind of like Mirrorball or Epiphany, or even I Can Do It With a Broken Heart, that's really about that tension between feeling like you owe people something and not having very much to give. It turned out to be a lot about Travis, and that's fine. We love that she's in love and that he is apparently very well endowed. But that didn't stop my train of thought. And I came back to this idea of reducing people to one thing, reducing them to their art, reducing them to the details we have about their life, or what we suspect about what they're doing with their money. And there was a line on wish lists that talks about all the things that other people want and what other people want, I think, from her. And one of them was they want a complex female character. And she kind of alludes to the fact that she feels like she's actually what she wants is very simple. And maybe that is disappointing to people, to be so simple. And while I think one of the problems with criticizing Taylor Swift is that people just say that her work is very simple, and I'd say that actually her work's very complicated. What I love about engaging with her fan community is how simple it feels. When I went to the Eras tour, how much joy there was, how everybody wanted to approach everybody and talk to each other, and it definitely had a kind of wedding atmosphere. And it encouraged me, the kind of barefaced sincerity of the Swifties encouraged me to have quite a decadent day when it came to this album release. I got up early and I listened to the album. I had my little coffee. I had a little dance. I did some knitting while I listened. I did some work. And then in the afternoon, I donned some bright orange eyeshadow and I went on a little trip. First, I went to an indie record shop. Craig has recently started collecting his no-skip albums, physically getting the CDs. And while I've always been a big proponent of owning your books and making sure that they're not something you're only accessing through streaming, I haven't really in the last 10 years committed to that when it has come to music. So I was kind of inspired not only to buy Taylor's new album, but also one of my favourite albums. Obviously, it's Chappell Roan's album. Obviously, we've loved her since 2022. Come on. And I let myself browse the record shop like I browse a bookshop, and it felt decadent. It felt a bit why am I spending my time doing this? And I feel like so much of what I think people don't understand about the sheer excitement of the Swiftie community is how starved we all are of real people, real objects, real community. And the idea, at least, of Taylor Swift, whether it delivers or not is up to you, but the idea of the Taylor Swift world is that you are supporting a real person. She seems throughout her career to be more geeky and down to earth and less prepared than a lot of other people in her position. What I think, to be honest, I don't know if she's had that much of a hand in, but in some ways maybe with the secret sessions, but the Swiftie community offers real connection, like real opportunity to talk to other people about it, to indulge your theories and your close reading of text and intertextuality between albums. Like all of that is celebrated and supported. And the fact that there's a real celebration again of objects. Insert video essay here about the complex relationship between objects and the environment, but at least for me it was so nice to hold an object and think about it in isolation, not as part of a playlist, not as part of a little clip on Instagram of like somebody else's thoughts on it or somebody else dancing to it. To have it in isolation just in itself and to hold it was that kind of sense of what Claire Dederer talks about, this idea of setting aside your own ego, your own self, and participating in a dreamland. Again, with so much, I've deleted Instagram this weekend because I was like, I actually can't deal with how much people want other people's art to be non-fiction and how much they want to understand the facts. Whereas I don't really think that's the point of music in general, and she's very upfront that at this point in her career, at best she is writing autofiction, if not fiction, thought experiments, responses to writing prompts. And I think this idea that the only place that an artist can get ideas and draw inspiration is their own lives is not only a little bit silly, it's like deeply historically inaccurate. Anyway, then I hopped on the bus and I went to Warwick Art Centre, which is an art centre in Coventry that I saw my first ever theatre show at. My school went to that art centre and it has like a very special place. I think we saw the BFG. It's a very special place in my heart. I met up with a new local friend because Lena's out here making friends as an adult, and we saw her 90-minute kind of film-esque presentation. They called it the launch party of The Life of a Showgirl, and it was decadent. They did show just the lyric videos of all of the songs, maybe sit with the lyrics a little bit, but also there was loads of behind the scenes stuff, and she talked a lot about her writing process. And I feel like if that stuff was online while all these conversations were happening, maybe some of them wouldn't be happening, but maybe that's how people prefer it because they garner more outrage that way. For me, on the initial kind of listens that I've had, the album doesn't seem to be about fame at all, or if it is, that's very much like in the background. The album to me, like the theme of the album to me, if there is one, is loyalty. Her ability to be loyal, people in her life that have failed to be loyal, what we ask of people when we ask them to be loyal, and whether that's fair. And I guess from that, wondering whether it's fair to ask anybody, especially somebody we don't know, for more than their art, like more than what they've said on the page. And I'm not sure if it is. There's a quote in this book that I really like that says, "The best part of a writer's biography is not the record of his adventures, but the story of his style." And I really have enjoyed following the story of Taylor Swift's style of writing. I don't think this is my favourite album of hers, but there are definitely some really great songs on there, and I'm excited to re-listen to them and percolate on them, as we should, like not respond straight away and be like, or And I also think just being sucked in to some of this Swiftium that I have been over the years, like even like making my own dress for the Eras tour, has given me a sense of decadence over my own experience with art. Like I am allowed to make friendship bracelets and theme my makeup to an album because I'm excited about it, and take some time to go and buy the album physically and listen to it and spend time with other people listening to it. Did it cost me? Yes, it did. Did some of that money go towards Taylor Swift, who probably doesn't need it? Yeah. Did a lot of it go towards one of my local record stores that I would like to stay open? Did a lot of it go to an art centre that I know that does loads of good in my community to uplift art and has uplifted art in my life? Yeah. Am I much more concerned about all of the other people who have power over our lives that are really fucking it up right now? And am I going to direct most of my energy towards making them change their actions? Yeah, I'll be writing to my MP. this weekend, I think, instead of sitting on Instagram giving hot takes about this album. Because at the end of the day, I feel like the way this music fits into my life is that it gets me up in the morning, it uplifts me, it changes my mood, it makes me laugh. And the people who have the real material power over what it costs me to live, whether my national health service keeps running, whether they renationalise my trains so that I could ride the train without getting into debt, they're all things that are happening elsewhere, and interacting emotionally with good art is simply like one of the fuels I put into my veins to go and do all that. I would really recommend reading this book if you feel confused about whoever you are keen on at the moment. She talks a lot about how we think we're having like an ethical thought when it comes to, should I like this art or this book or this novel or this music thing, but actually we're having a moral feeling and connection with other people and what we find in common with them, and music and stuff like that. It can often, it doesn't always feel like a choice. It feels like something a little bit more akin to love, and love is complicated, and that's okay. It's okay for things to be complicated, and it's okay for us to just accept that maybe the people that we have previously idolized aren't that deep and aren't going to save us, but they do make a bop. Thank you so much for watching. This video is made possible by the Gumption Club, my wonderful patrons, of which we obviously have a Swiftie contingent, a complicated, critical Swiftie contingent, where we've been talking about the album on Discord as well. If you are interested in joining the Gumption Club and getting a weekly podcast from me, including some breakdowns of some of the songs on the album, I'll definitely be doing some episodes about that. You can go below in the description or to patreon.com/thegumptionclub to look at joining. Thank you so much for humouring what is probably the opposite of a hot take on this album, and is more an encouragement to you to go out and be decadent about the things you enjoy and invest in your local infrastructure and the smaller artists in your community, as well as obviously loving what you love. May your showgirls always be feathery. Frogs knock out.